What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, and you can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Wednesday, June 11th, kicking things off as always with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league. We'll start it off with the bad news as catcher Patrick Bailey was placed on the 10-day IL with a neck strain by the Giants. So it sounds like it's going to be a minimum stay for Bailey. But in the meantime, it looks like, why did I forget who the backup catcher is for the Giants? That's unfortunate. But Logan Porter was selected from the minors in a corresponding move and will act as the backup to the name that I cannot recall at the moment. Maybe it'll come to me later. I doubt it. You'll have to look that one up yourself. Next, we have outfielder Nathan Lukes, who was placed on the 7-day IL with a concussion. Unfortunate, as Lukes was having a pretty solid first season in Toronto. And a corresponding move, outfielder Will Robertson was recalled from the minors, and he'll be on the strong side of a left field platoon in Toronto until Lukes returns. Robertson is somewhat interesting at AAA. He batted .288 with 12 homers and a 159 WRC plus, but he seems to be more of a quad A player, pushing 30 years old. And our last IL placement involves starting pitcher Cole Ragans, who was placed on the 15-day IL with a rotator cuff strain. Ragans just returned from a groin injury-related IL stint and made just one start before heading right back with a much more concerning ailment. And it looks like Ragans is due for an extended absence with the nature of this rotator cuff strain. The Royals were already using a 6-man rotation, so it looks like Noah Cameron will stick in the rotation for the foreseeable future, and we won't need a corresponding move in the rotation for the Royals to replace Ragans. But they did activate Lucas Erceg from the 15-day IL in a corresponding move. He had been out with a max strain and will return to being the top setup man to closer Carlos Estevez. And in terms of news, starting pitcher Jackson Jobe will undergo Tommy John surgery and will miss the remainder of the 2025 season. Very unfortunate for Jobe in his first full season. He will be out for quite a while into next season as well. So drop Jobe everywhere. Maybe start buying low in Dynasty if you're a big Jobe fan, but very unfortunate. Jackson Jobe, Tommy John surgery. Now we'll take a look at our notable performances from Wednesday, a day in which we had a full slate of 15 games. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with Brent Rooker, who did all he could, but the A's lost in Anaheim. Rooker went 4 for 5 with 3 runs, a double, 2 home runs, and 3 RBIs. He's up to 15 homers on the year now. The first one traveled 412 feet at 103 miles per hour, and the second one went 408 feet at 102 miles per hour. And once Rooker established himself last year, it really felt like he was going to be one of the best hitters in the league for a few years at the very least. And he seems to be maintaining that notion this year, though not quite to the extent he did last year. Rooker posted a 164 WRC plus in 2024, but multiple metrics suggested he was a bit lucky to get to those heights in the WRC plus department, or at least across the board. But this year, Rooker's only at 127 in the WRC plus department, but the luck is sort of the other way around. StatCast suggests Rooker has been unlucky as he's maintained his impressive batted ball metrics while cutting his usually 30% plus strikeout rate down to 21%, which supports a hitter that will be a producer in both the average and the power department. Rooker's numbers currently suggest that he's somewhere between 2023 and 2024, but looking under the hood has revealed that he's actually the best version of himself that he's ever been. Brent Rooker is number one Brent Rooker in 2025. Next, we have Willy Adames, who helped the Giants to win in Colorado, going 3 for 4 with 3 runs, a double, a home run, and 3 runs batted in. It was his 7th homer of the year, and it traveled 452 feet at 107 miles per hour. And coming off a career best campaign, Adames inked a franchise record contract with the Giants, but has failed to live up to expectations thus far, batting just .203 with a 627 OPS. Adames has altered his approach, swinging less and using the whole field more often, but the lack of aggressiveness has allowed pitchers to take advantage of him by stealing tons of called strikes and putting him behind in counts, which has forced Adames to swing at bad pitches to protect, which ultimately has led to worse results. I'd love to see Adames take initiative and look to make some noise at the plate when he's up there. He could also do with pulling the ball more, especially in San Francisco, where right field is absolutely ruthless against right-handed hitters. But StatCast suggests that Adames has been unlucky even without an approach change. So I think I'm going to be buying low just about everywhere. And lastly, we have Marcelo Meyer, who helped the Red Sox to win against the Rays, going 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 home runs, and 2 runs batted in. He's up to 3 homers now. First one traveled 418 feet at 109 miles per hour, and the second one went 410 feet at 105 miles per hour. It feels like Meyer's debut was overshadowed by other Red Sox prospects getting called up, but he's quickly proven that he belongs in the big leagues. And I feel like the overshadowing comes from like Christian Campbell being such a big thing in April, and then Roman Anthony coming up this month in June, that Meyer's May debut was sort of, underwhelming, and he didn't like pop off right away either. He's sort of getting there now, but I think he's showing more consistency. He's proving to be more of a big leaguer rather than somebody who has these bursts of incredible performances and then long slumps. But Meyer has played an impressive third base as well and is up to a trio of homers in his first 15 big league games. He's hitting the ball on the ground more than 55% of the time and is striking out a quarter of the time. So not ideal, but Meyer has displayed power and defensive reliability, which will ensure his playing time throughout the year. I'd be rostering Meyer everywhere, even if it's just for the upside and the fun, but I wouldn't set my expectations too high, as he's unlikely to be a significant contributor in the batting average department due to his strikeouts and reliance on balls in play as a ground ball hitter. But Meyer is still a super fun player to roster. But if you'd like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Wednesday, check out the daily Batters Box article over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with David Peterson, who helped the Mets to win against the Nationals, tossing 9 shutout innings. That's a complete game shutout from David Peterson. He walked nobody while allowing 6 hits and striking out 6. He induced 13 whiffs with 36% CSW across 106 pitches. This was the first career shutout for David Peterson, and he also earned the King Cole as he led baseball with his 36% CSW on Wednesday. I finally remembered who the Giants' new backup catcher or new everyday catcher will be. It's Andrew Knizner. So back to the very top of the podcast. Andrew Knizner will be the one replacing Patrick Bailey. But here, now back to David Peterson, who threw his first career shutout and earned the King Cole with a 36% CSW. This was a game really of the Nationals, allowing Peterson to serve them sinkers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the Nats being good and finishing their meals. And to put that analogy in numbers, Peterson returned 11 called strikes and 8 outs on balls in play for 41% CSW with his sinker, getting away with a ton over the plate. The sinker success can also be explained by Peterson's ability to throw the rest of his pitches for strikes on Wednesday. He kept his heater upstairs for a trio of whiffs and 30% CSW, then turned to his slider to take down lefties to the tune of 5 whiffs and 33% CSW, while unleashing changeups at righties for 3 whiffs and 46% CSW. Both of those secondary pitches had a strike rate exceeding 70%, which propelled his shutout on Wednesday. Peterson has been so solid all year long now, sporting a 2.49 ERA and 1.19 whip, so I feel totally fine trusting him in Atlanta next time out. Next, we have Chad Patrick, who took on the Braves, but the Brewers lost. Patrick tossed 5 innings, allowing 7 hits and 5 earned runs. He walked 3 while striking out 8, inducing 19 whiffs with 29% CSW across 94 pitches. And really a gallows pull from Patrick. He's not generally a big whiff pitcher, entering Wednesday with a 10% swinging strike rate, but the Braves were ultra aggressive against his cutter, resulting in 6 whiffs, but also a pair of homers that accounted for 4 of the 5 runs Patrick surrendered on Wednesday. His sinker was also hit hard, but the success of his cutter alongside his 4-seamer slider combo earned him recognition on Wednesday. Patrick's heater induced 4 whiffs upstairs while he spun sliders glove side to righties for 5 whiffs and 43% CSW. And generally, Patrick's stuff doesn't seem overwhelming enough to support a gallows pull, let alone his 3.25 ERA on the season. But he's proven he can be relied upon as a streamer against weak offenses, and hinted at a more appealing ceiling here. Patrick gets the Cubs in Chicago next. I'll be avoiding that one, but there's probably a stream in the near future for Chad Patrick. And lastly, we have David Festa, who helped the Twins to a win against the Rangers, going 6 innings, allowing 3 hits and 2 earned runs while walking 2 and striking out 4. He induced 17 whiffs with 27% CSW across 86 pitches. And Festa struggled in his last start due to an impromptu call to the majors, but he appeared a lot more settled in on Wednesday, carving up the Rangers with his 3-pitch combo. Changeups were Festa's most thrown offering and induced 8 whiffs, while heaters returned 4 whiffs and 61% strikes. and sliders returned 5 whiffs and 35% CSW. But it was the continued ascension of his sinker that has me a little more intrigued. Festa has great stuff, but not the best command. He's needed a secondary strike pitch to take the pressure off his fastball to stay in the zone, or for one of his secondaries to return consistent strikes. He's always needed a secondary strike pitch to avoid having to rely so heavily on either that fastball staying in the zone or the secondaries returning consistent strikes. Enter the sinker, which will allow him to stay in counts and hopefully end some at-bats early with weak contact. He threw the sinker only 10% of the time on Wednesday, but he didn't throw it at all last year and was throwing it half as often before his most recent demotion. So I already liked Festa before this, and this has me buying in on some potential consistency because he's clearly using the pitch more. He threw it even more than he did in this one in his last time out. So I think we got to start buying into Festa being somebody who can find some more strikes, which will help his command, help his control, and will ultimately make the rest of his pitches, which are already great, even better. And all that being said, I'm still going to watch from afar as Festa gets the Reds in Cincinnati next. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Wednesday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Alex Vesia struck out the side in order in the ninth to earn his third save of the season. Tanner Scott pitched a perfect eighth in that one. David Bednar pitched a perfect ninth for his ninth save. Devin Williams recorded the final 2 outs of the game for his eighth save after Mark Leiter Jr. worked into trouble in the beginning of that inning, the ninth. Reed Detmers recorded his second save with a perfect ninth. Kenley Jansen had pitched on back-to-back days and in 4 of the past 5. Yariel Rodriguez recorded his first save of the season with a perfect ninth. Jeff Hoffman had pitched on back-to-back days and in 4 of the past 5. Shelby Miller recorded his 7th save with a scoreless ninth. It's clear he will be replacing Justin Martinez as the Diamondbacks closer. And lastly, Aroldis Chapman is up to 12 saves now after his perfect ninth on Wednesday. And in terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or below their saves, Emmanuel Clase pitched a scoreless ninth with a 9-run lead. The Guardians are off today, so that's probably the case there. I don't know. Very weird there. Yohan Duran pitched a scoreless ninth with a 4-run lead, a little bit more normal. And lastly, Camilo Doval worked around a solo homer while pitching the ninth with a 4-run lead. The Giants had put up 3 insurance runs in the top of the ninth, which really ruined Doval's save opportunity. So he was going to pitch either way. But if you'd like more information on relievers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Thursday, June 12th, a day in which we'll have just 8 games on the slate. My matchup of the day is Sonny Gray versus Jacob Misiorowski. Sonny is always a blast to watch, especially in an intra-division matchup like this one. Sonny Gray, always a blast, but really, we're here to see what Misiorowski looks like in his MLB debut. I wouldn't be starting him. It's always scary starting a pitcher in their debut, and the Cardinals lineup isn't one that's scary, but you never really know. Still, I'm going to be tuning in to see what Misiorowski looks like in his first taste of the big leagues. In terms of probable starters, we've got 4 guys in the auto starts tier, including Gray. We've also got Tarek Skubal in Baltimore, Framber Valdez versus the White Sox, and Kodai Senga versus the Nationals. In our probably starts tier, we've got 4 guys, and in our questionable starts tier, we've got 3, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Davis Martin in Houston. Not the best matchup, obviously questionable start tier, but Martin's cutter this year has been a lot different and has propelled him to find some success. Don't look for strikeouts here. I think his season high is 7. So we're looking at more of like a low strikeout Toby performance here from Davis Martin. I'd also keep an eye out for Michael Soroka in Queens. Soroka's been pretty interesting this year with a higher strikeout ceiling thanks to the incorporation of a slider, but the Mets are a pretty tough matchup. This is in the questionable starts tier. So, take your risk if you're willing to, but Soroka could find some success on Thursday in Queens. In terms of hitter suggestions, I'd be targeting Juan Soto versus Mike Soroka in Citi Field. Soto's batted .600 with 2 homers and a 1914 OPS and 10 at-bats against Soroka. I'd also look at Justin Turner versus Andrew Heaney in PNC Park. Turner's batted .263 with 2 homers and a 912 OPS and 19 at-bats versus Heaney. Paul Goldschmidt, I would also take a look at versus Seth Lugo in Kauffman Stadium. Goldschmidt has batted .571 with a pair of homers and a 1625 OPS and 14 at-bats against Lugo. I'd also look at Marcus Semien versus Bailey Ober in Target Field. Semien has batted .538 with a pair of homers and a 1648 OPS in 13 at-bats against Ober. And lastly, I'd target Giants and Rockies hitters in Coors. The pitching matchup will be right-handed pitcher Hayden Birdsong versus right-handed pitcher Antonio Senzatella. So Giants and Rockies hitters in Coors. And now we'll close things out with our relievers to watch. Camilo Doval has pitched on back-to-back days and in 3 of the past 4. So expect Randy Rodriguez to get a potential save opportunity on Thursday for the Giants. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. Trevor Hooth will be with you tomorrow and throughout the weekend. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.